The first time Adrian DeLuca saw her, she was balancing 3 coffee mugs, a plate of pancakes, and the weight of a life that never seemed to get any easier. He wasn't looking for love. He wasn't even looking for company. As the most feared mafia boss on the East Coast, Adrian had buried every soft part of himself years ago. Men crossed the street to avoid him. Rivals whispered his name like a curse. Newspapers called him the Ghost King because no one ever managed to prove he existed. At 42, he had everything money could buy: power, loyalty, fear. But peace? That had died with his wife 12 years earlier. So when a business meeting in Chicago ended earlier than expected, Adrian did something no one in his organization had ever seen him do. He walked. No bodyguards, no convoy, just one man in a black overcoat moving through a city that had no idea who he really was. That's when he found the little diner. Inside, life was wonderfully ordinary. Families argued over syrup. Truck drivers laughed too loudly. College students complained about exams. For the first time in months, Adrian felt invisible. Then he noticed her. She apologized to every customer whose order was late, even when the kitchen was clearly overwhelmed. She smiled at an elderly man who couldn't afford dessert and quietly paid for his pie herself. When a little girl dropped her milkshake, she knelt beside her without hesitation and helped clean the mess before bringing another one free of charge. She wasn't pretending. Kindness simply lived inside her. Her name tag read, Lena. She finally reached his booth. "What can I get you?" Their eyes met. Something shifted. Not dramatically, not like lightning, more like two people suddenly realizing they had been walking toward the same invisible destination for years. "You look exhausted," Adrian said. She laughed softly. "That obvious? You've apologized to 15 people in 5 minutes. I counted 16. He smiled. She smiled back. It was the first genuine smile Adrian had worn in years. Over the next 3 hours, he never mentioned who he was. She never asked. He learned she was 27. She was studying nursing at night. Her mother had died of cancer. Her father had disappeared before she could remember his face. Every dollar she earned disappeared into tuition and rent. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you do?" Adrian looked out the window. "I solve difficult problems." She laughed. That's the most mysterious answer I've ever heard. It usually ends conversations. Not this one. For reasons Adrian couldn't explain, he stayed until her shift ended. They walked along the river, talked until midnight. Neither asked for promises. Neither expected tomorrow. Some people spend years trying to force love into existence. Others meet a stranger and recognize something familiar they can't explain. That night became a memory Adrian locked away before sunrise. No names beyond first names. No phone numbers. No expectations. Just one perfect night neither believed they'd relive. By morning, he was gone. Months passed. Life returned to normal. Or as normal as life could be inside the DeLuca empire. Adrian buried himself in expanding territory. His nephew, Ethan DeLuca, had become everything Adrian hoped he would. 30 years old. Disciplined. Intelligent. Nothing like Adrian had been at that age. Ethan hated unnecessary violence. He believed the family could eventually become legitimate. Adrian admired him for it. "If anyone deserves this empire," Adrian once told his consigliere, "it's Ethan." Then one evening, Ethan walked into Adrian's estate wearing the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. "I met someone." Adrian barely looked up from the reports on his desk. "You've said that before." "No, this one's different." Adrian sighed. "They're always different." "I'm proposing." That finally caught his attention. "You've known her how long?" 8 months. "Name?" Ethan grinned. "Lena." The coffee cup slipped from Adrian's hand. It shattered against the marble floor. Silence filled the room. "You okay?" Ethan asked. Adrian stared into nothing. There were millions of women named Lena. Millions. It couldn't be. She's coming to dinner Friday. Adrian forced himself to nod. I'll meet her then. Friday arrived. The DeLuca mansion had hosted presidents, judges, foreign billionaires. No gathering had ever made Adrian nervous. Until now, the front doors opened. Ethan entered first, his hand gently resting on the back of the woman beside him. She stepped inside, lifted her eyes. Everything stopped. The color disappeared from Lena's face. Adrian forgot how to breathe. It was her, the diner, the river, the woman he'd never forgotten. The room became unbearably quiet. Ethan smiled, completely unaware. Uncle Adrian, this is Lena. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Then Lena did something Adrian never expected. She smiled. Polite. Controlled. Professional. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. DeLuca. She was pretending. And somehow, that hurt more than recognition. Lena had spent months imagining what meeting Ethan's family would be like. She pictured awkward conversations, questions about marriage, maybe a disapproving aunt who thought she wasn't good enough. She never imagined she'd come face to face with the one man she'd spent 8 months trying to forget. Adrian DeLuca, only now he wasn't the quiet, mysterious stranger who had shared coffee and laughter with her on a rainy night. He sat at the head of a 20-foot dining table. Every man in the room stood when he stood. Every conversation died when he looked up. He wasn't just wealthy. He was power itself. Lena felt her pulse pounding in her ears. Ethan squeezed her hand beneath the table. Nervous? She forced a smile. A little. He kissed her forehead. Don't be. Uncle Adrian looks intimidating, but he's fair. Lena almost laughed. Fair? The man across the table had hidden an entire life from her. Yet, somehow, she couldn't hate him for it. Because she'd done the same. Neither of them had been honest that night. Neither had asked questions they weren't prepared to answer. Maybe that was why it had worked. It had existed outside reality. Outside consequences. Until now. Adrian finally spoke. So, Lena, his voice was calm. Too calm. Tell me about yourself. She met his eyes for the briefest second, long enough to recognize the same quiet loneliness she'd seen months ago. I'm finishing nursing school, and after that, I'd like to work in pediatric oncology. Children? My mother died of cancer. The words landed harder than she'd intended. Adrian's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. I'm sorry. I don't like sympathy. I wasn't offering sympathy. She frowned. I was offering respect. For the first time that evening, their old rhythm returned, just for a heartbeat. Ethan noticed. You two seem to get along already? Lena immediately looked away. We've only exchanged a few sentences. Adrian reached for his wine. Your fiancé is impressive. Ethan beamed. I know. Dinner continued. Business. Politics. Travel. Everything except the enormous secret sitting between the two people at opposite ends of the table. Whenever Ethan wasn't looking, Adrian caught Lena staring, not with longing, with questions. Questions she'd never receive answers to. Why had he disappeared? Why hadn't he called? Why hadn't he told her who he was? She wasn't the only one wondering. Adrian had questions too. Why Ethan? Of all the men in America, why his nephew? After dinner, Ethan was called outside by security. One of the warehouses had reported suspicious activity. I'll only be 5 minutes, Ethan said. You two make yourselves comfortable. The front door closed behind him. The mansion suddenly felt too quiet. Lena stood near one of the enormous windows overlooking the gardens. She heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around. I wondered if you'd recognize me, Adrian said quietly. I recognized you the second I walked in. I never meant for this to happen. She let out a bitter laugh. Neither did I. Silence settled between them. Finally, she faced him. Why did you lie? I never lied. You told me your life was complicated. It is. You forgot to mention you lead one of the most powerful crime families in the country. His jaw tightened. I was trying to give both of us one normal evening. You disappeared before sunrise. I had to. You could have left a note. I knew if I did. He stopped himself. If you did what? I would have come back. Her breath caught. For a second, the mansion disappeared. They were back beside the river. Just Adrian. Just Lena. No empire. No engagement ring. No impossible future. Then she held up her left hand. The diamond sparkled under the chandelier. I'm marrying Ethan. I know. I love him. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. I know. So whatever happened between us, it ends here. His voice was almost a whisper. It ended the morning I walked away. She searched his face. You don't mean that. No. Then why say it? Because it's the only thing that protects everyone. Their eyes locked again. Neither moved. Neither noticed the footsteps approaching. Ethan walked back into the room just as they stepped apart. You two okay? Lena smiled too quickly. We were admiring the garden. Adrian nodded once. Beautiful view. Ethan wrapped an arm around Lena's waist. You'll get used to this place. Someday, it'll feel like home. For the first time all evening. Adrian looked away. Over the next few weeks, wedding planning filled everyone's schedule. Lena visited the estate often. Not because she wanted to, because, Ethan insisted, you have to get to know the family. The family, every visit became its own test. She'd catch Adrian across the room during meetings. He'd silently move a chair when she looked tired. If she mentioned liking a certain tea once, it would quietly appear in the kitchen the next day. Never a word. Never an explanation. No one noticed. Except the housekeeper. Mrs. Romano had worked for the DeLucas for nearly 40 years. One afternoon, she found Adrian standing alone in the library, watching Lena laugh in the courtyard with Ethan. I've never seen you look at anyone like that. Adrian didn't answer. You should stop. I know. You won't. No. Mrs. Romano sighed. This family has survived bullets, betrayals, and wars. She glanced toward the window. I'm afraid love might finally destroy it. Adrian's phone rang before he could answer. His security chief sounded unusually tense. We have a problem. What kind? Someone's been watching Miss Lena. Adrian's expression hardened instantly. Who? We don't know yet. How long? About 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That meant someone had started following her long before the engagement dinner, long before anyone outside the family should have known she mattered. Adrian's instincts screamed. This wasn't random. Someone wasn't watching Ethan's fiancée. Someone was watching him. And somewhere across the city, hidden behind the tinted windows of a black SUV, a man lifted a camera. He smiled as Lena left the mansion. Then he sent a single photograph to an unknown number. The message underneath contained only 6 chilling words. The king still loves her. Proceed. Adrian knew the message wasn't just a threat. It was a trap. Someone wanted him to react. If he rushed to Lena's side, his enemies would have proof she mattered to him. If he stayed away, she would be left vulnerable. Before he could decide, the choice was made for him. Lena disappeared. She never arrived at the hospital for her nursing shift. Her phone was found in a parking garage, cracked and abandoned. Within an hour, Ethan had every DeLuca soldier searching the city. Then the ransom call came. But the kidnappers didn't ask for money. They demanded Adrian. The truth finally surfaced. Years earlier, Adrian had destroyed a rival mafia family led by Victor Moretti. Everyone believed Victor had died in the fire that ended the war. He hadn't. He had spent years rebuilding his empire, waiting for the one weakness Adrian would never expect. He had watched Adrian after the engagement dinner. He had mistaken quiet restraint for hidden love. To Victor, Lena wasn't Ethan's fiancée. She was Adrian's weakness. Adrian made a decision that stunned everyone. He ordered every soldier to stand down. I'm going alone. Ethan slammed his fist onto the table. She's my fiancée. And this war is mine, Adrian replied. For the first time in his life, Ethan looked his uncle in the eye and said, no. The room fell silent. Adrian expected defiance. He didn't expect loyalty. "We're bringing her home together." Hours later, uncle and nephew entered an abandoned steel mill where Victor was waiting with armed men and Lena tied to a chair. Victor laughed. "I knew you'd come. I just wasn't sure which one of you loved her more." Lena looked from Adrian to Ethan. She finally understood. Not everything, but enough. A fierce gunfight erupted through the factory. Adrian fought his way to Lena while Ethan covered him. Together they escaped the ambush, but Victor cornered them on a narrow catwalk high above the factory floor. Victor aimed his gun at Ethan. Adrian stepped in front of the bullet without thinking. The shot struck his shoulder instead of Ethan's chest. In that instant, Ethan realized the truth. His uncle had never tried to steal the woman he loved. He had spent months trying to protect both of them from a mistake he could never undo. Ethan shot Victor before he could fire again. The crime lord fell from the catwalk, ending the feud that had haunted the DeLuca family for years. Weeks later, Adrian recovered at the estate. Lena visited him one final time. Neither spoke about the night they had met. Neither spoke about what might have been. Some stories weren't meant to be rewritten. "They're setting a wedding date," Adrian said quietly. "I know. You'll be happy." "I think so." He smiled faintly. "That's enough for me." Lena stepped closer. She kissed his cheek not as a lover, but as someone saying goodbye to a chapter of her life. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me." She walked away without looking back. Adrian watched from the window until her car disappeared beyond the estate gates. A few months later, Ethan and Lena were married in a small private ceremony. Adrian attended. He stood in the back, applauded louder than anyone else, and left before the reception began. Within a year, Adrian announced he was stepping away from the DeLuca empire. He handed leadership to Ethan, who transformed the family business into legitimate investments and charities, ending decades of bloodshed. As for Adrian, he vanished from public life. Some said he retired to Italy. Others claimed he still quietly watched over the family from the shadows. No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain. The greatest battle the feared Mafia King ever fought wasn't against rival families or assassins. It was against his own heart. And for the first time in his life, he chose to lose.